at 4 p.m. Now a little bit of Linda news. No?
Nope.
Why?
Because I didn't do it.
Oh, you didn't do news. Well, we can't do the news because Linda didn't do it. There's no injury report. Well, there we go. Holy cow, we'll get this show right off to a bang. I'll tell you that right now.
All right. Good job. Show over. Bye-bye.
Yes. So good morning, Jack. Good morning, Keith. Good morning, James. How y'all doing today?
You know, I'm kind of laughing looking at the four of us, and let me finish my sentence. And when I look at the four of us, I see four losers. And let me explain why. We're fans of the following teams, Mac. You're a Giant fan. I'm a Jets fan. James is a Saints fan. Keith is a Patriot fan. Four losing teams, and they're losing badly this season too. At least with Keith, expectations were low. At least with you, Mac, expectations were low. James's expectations with the Saints were mid-range, and I'm hopeful that they could be a playoff team. My expectations were high, so it makes me the biggest loser out of the four of us.
So that's how Jack's doing. I'm doing fine, thanks, Mac.
You got Drake May at least. You got your franchise quarterback.
I may be a loser, but I stay true to my team. My colors are always on me every Sunday, and you know that. So. Mac's colors appeared months ago.
Here we go. So, Keith, I know we got some college games to get to with you. I mean, there's a lot of interesting games that happened, so we'll let you take it away.
Yeah, it was another kind of crazy day in college football, college weekend. Army kicks it off with a big win to get their first conference championship ever. They won national championships back in the 30s and 40s, but haven't been that relevant in 60 years. But great year for Army and a lot of fun. Not in the playoff, but no big deal. Army Navy next week still. The SEC was an ugly game. Georgia finds a way to beat Texas for a second time. And as we argue, and we'll talk maybe a little bit before we get done here, and I'll talk a lot about it on my show. Everybody's talking about resumes, and Texas has maybe the worst resume of all these 12 teams that'll be in. Fun game. Carson Beck gets hurt. I have another question about what would have happened if Georgia lost, but that's just another question. So ACC, exciting game. SMU falls way behind, but fights all the way back to tie the game, and then on a long kickoff and one pass, Clemson crashes the party with a long field goal, and that will be the only question left today. Well, two questions left today: whether SMU stays in the field and Bama gets knocked out, which I think will happen, and what the seeding will actually be. And who will get the buys. Nobody would have predicted before the season that Oregon, Boise State, Arizona State would all have buys going into this playoff. Nobody. If they did, they won a lot of money. They should have won a lot of money. So a lot of fun games yesterday. The Big 12 game was a blowout. Arizona State continues their great run. Don't know that I'd want to play that team in the first round, and I think now I doubt it. I think Notre Dame's going to finish 5. I like Notre Dame. I have a pretty decent size chance to win some money on a future bet on Notre Dame. To win the national championship. They may get Clemson in the first round and have a nice path to at least the semifinal. It's better to finish 5 than it is to finish 1. Possibly in this tournament. A lot of fun, though. It was a lot of fun. I think the last 2 months of the season, every week was exciting, and it's going to be a fun playoff once we get there here in a couple of weeks.
Hey, Keith.
Good morning, Rick. Go ahead.
In regards to Arizona State, that kid, Cam Scatterboo, is he underrated?
Oh, the kid is a monster. He's like freaking Larry Zonka with speed. He is just unbelievable, that kid. Yeah, I don't know if you guys, James may not be old enough. There was a running back years ago, Don Nattingham. You guys probably remember him. Mac and Jack bounced around, played with the Dolphins and the Colts. He kind of reminds you of him a lot, but better. This kid, you just can't bring him down, and he's fast, and he's part of the passing game, and Arizona State's a very interesting team and to watch her. They lost their best receiver going into this game. Their best receiver by far. He had 40 or almost 50 more catches than the second best guy in his team, and they didn't miss a beat. So it's an interesting scenario up there. And Boise State locked up the group of five with a pretty convincing win as well over UNLV on Friday night. So. Going to be interesting.
Thank you, Rick. Glad to be back. Paul Spada with Yo, Oregon Ducks rock.
I did mention the Ducks. The Ducks win, but not necessarily in convincing fashion. Their defense, Penn State's got an offense from about 1980, and you can't give up that many points. Oregon better be careful of come playoff time. They've got a history of falling flat once we get to the postseason. We'll see whether that happens. They're easily the number one team in the country. They don't have any losses, but there's not a great team in this field. There's not a great team in this field. So anything could happen.
All right. So I guess we should get to your picks, Keith. And let's see who you got here.
Yesterday I picked all the winners. It's easy. Today I have Arizona -2 over Seattle, Kansas City -4 over the Chargers, and San Francisco -3.5 over the always find a way to lose Bears.
San Fran -3 over the Bears. Then Jack, what do you got today? You're muted, Jack.
That's why he wins every game. We don't hear what he says.
Yeah, I'm having a bad season. You're correct. I thought the Bears were 4.5-point underdogs against the Niners. You said 3.5?
Mac can check that. I wrote down 3.5. Maybe I wrote it down wrong.
Right. Early in the week, it was 4.5, and that's
what
I changed.
And see, Mac, you asked.
No, but Mac goes on the early in the week odds. That's
should we not wait? I mean, this is the thing. I knew it changes. So I try to wait as late as possible to get the right number. Because as of yesterday, it was it was plus 3.5 for Chicago.
Well, the reason why I do that is because we lock in on the day that we all do it together. That's the reason why I do it like that.
Yeah.
So,
okay, so what are the best? 4.5 or 3.5?
we'll give you 4.5, Jack.
4.5. Okay, so I'll have the Bears.
Might change my pick. That's a big change of point.
With the 4.5. Keith is looking for an excuse immediately when he's wrong in the game.
No, I'll stay with my pick.
The table for that. I'm gonna don't laugh, guys. I'm gonna take the Dolphins. Now the Dolphins were favored by 6 over the Jets early in the week. Is it still 6 that has it gone up?
It's still 6.
6. I'm going to take the Dolphins giving the 6 against the Jets. That's how low the Jets have went, where I would pick against them.
How low Jack is gone.
Points with Miami. And I'm going to take the Vikings against the Falcons and give 5.5. This Kirk Cousins homecoming to Minnesota. People are thinking he's going to get out of his slump against his old team. He's going to look good. I think just the opposite. I think Brian Flores and the Viking defense is going to feast on Kirk Cousins. And at the end of the day, we're going to ask, is it time to go to Michael Penix and not what's wrong with Kirk Cousins as he passed his peak? I think that's going to be one of the big storylines in the NFL at the end of the day. So I'm taking the Bears, the Dolphins, and the Vikings.
Okay. Let's see. Let me give you, James, did you give me your pick yet?
No, I haven't. I'm taking the Saints -5 against the Giants. I'm also taking the Bengals. The Bengals are -5.5 against Dallas. even though the Bengals has one of the worst defenses, their offenses, they're scoring 30 points a game. Joe Burrow's lead in all categories. He should have any problems against Dallas defense. And I'm also taking the Bills. The Bills against the Rams. They are Buffalo is -3.5 against the Rams.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
Linda's got Minnesota -6 at Atlanta. She also has Buffalo -3.5 at the Rams, and Kansas City -4 at the Chargers. Let's see. I got mine's the Stars, baby. I got Pitt -7 at Cleveland. I've got the New Orleans -5 at the Giants, and Seattle +2 at Arizona. So that's all of the picks. Keith, I know I got you on longer here. It's only 8:11 in.
I'm going to tell you, there's a lot at stake people don't talk about between Kansas City and Buffalo because only one team gets a bye in the playoffs in the conference. And that bye is big because you have to win 2 games to get to the Super Bowl instead of 3. And both games are going to be at home, on your home field, no matter what. And Buffalo's only 1 game behind Kansas City, and Buffalo would have the tiebreaker because they beat Kansas City in the regular season. So, both teams are walking a little bit of a tightrope here between Buffalo and Kansas City.
Home field doesn't matter. Telling me, Matt.
Buffalo has one game on their record that's got to be marked. They're at Detroit. And that's going to be a tough one for them there at Detroit. But Kansas City has 2 games. They got to play the last 2 games away. They got to play the Broncos the last game, and they got to play another big team. I forgot who it was, but it's going to be tough sledding for them. So Buffalo has an opportunity to take over that lead.
Yeah.
I think it's important for Buffalo to play at home in the playoffs as much as possible.
Kansas City beat them in Buffalo last year in the playoffs.
I know that.
Yeah, and one of the commentators on ESPN, I'm laughing, he's talking about also how important it is for Kansas City to win at Buffalo. And he's saying because Kansas City hasn't won in Buffalo in a long time. And I'm thinking, what the heck are you talking about? They beat them in the playoffs. I mean, someone should have corrected them.
Listen, Kansas City will be my pick until they get beat because they didn't finish the regular season very strongly last year, if you remember. To talk point about who they're playing, they could lose a game or even 2 of those. Who knows on the road? But it only matters once you get into the postseason and winning games. It won't matter how you win games. It just matters that you win. And they find ways to win. And the conspiracy theorists of the world will have their own opinion, and I'll have mine about why Kansas City continues to win.
You can only blame the officials.
This is why the same conversation is starting to happen with the Lions now. It's just nonsense. It's good grief. They must be WWE fans. I don't know.
Did you guys? I mean, you had to enjoy the Lions Green Bay game.
Great game.
Yes, that was one of the better ones out there.
Great example of what I'm talking about with the nonsensical conspiracy stuff. All I see on social media is pictures of Goff with his knee on the ground during that last handoff. He's not down by any contact. He didn't give himself up, so he's not down in any situation unless he's still playing at Cal.
Let me throw this at you guys. Right now, the consensus, James. Go ahead, James.
I just want to say that the Chiefs are going to play the Steelers at the Steelers, and they're going to play the Broncos at the Broncos the last 2 games. That's going to be tough.
They could lose both those games. Yeah, I give you that. It's not going to be easy, but they're going to be in the playoffs, and that's when that's when.
Guys, right now the consensus is this: for most people, the vast majority, that Kansas City and Buffalo are going to play in the AFC Championship game, and the Lions and Eagles are going to play in the NFL Championship game. But if you had to say there's one team that's going to emerge from the AFC in the Super Bowl that's not the Chiefs and the Bills, and one team in the NFC who's going to merge in the Super Bowl. That's not the Lions and Eagles. Who would you think would be the bronze medal team that's going to sneak up and get to the Super Bowl?
I would, in the AFC, I'd be wary of maybe Houston gelling here late in the season and getting on a run. That would be one of my pick in the AFC, I think. And in the NFC, one team, the Vikings just keep finding a way to get it done, but they've got a bad postseason history, obviously. I'm going to say the Packers in the NFC.
That's my preseason picks. The Packers over the Texans in the Super Bowl. But yeah, they're lurking on the outside to keep that in mind. Yeah.
They are. Just get there. And then, momentum means a lot, right? Even though I say Kansas City doesn't matter if they lose those last two games. For most teams, momentum means a lot. That's why I worry about the Lions peaking too soon here. 11 in a row. You're going to hit a soft spot somewhere. And, the Houston's a team that I would be wary. If they get hot here in these last 4 or 5 weeks, they'd be dangerous out in the playoffs for sure. They still got a lot of talent, and they're getting healthier. So I like that.
I mean, if I had to choose a team on both sides, on the AFC, I still like the Steelers. They just look complete. They look complete on all facets, man, and I think they have an opportunity to make a run. But, again, we're talking to the bronze team. And also on the NFC side, man, look, it's really tough to say on that side. But if I had to pick a team, I'd go with you guys. I'd go with the Packers.
Well, you say that the Lions may hit a rough spot. They peaked too early. The Patriots went almost perfect. They
lost the Super Bowl. Actually, that proves my point a little bit because they had their worst game at the last game. So that's a problem. And again, they just got ran into a juggernaut that day, and they didn't play their best game, and they lost. But yeah, I'm not saying that 100% you need to have momentum going in. Kansas City proved last year, really, and a couple of times in the last 4 years, you don't necessarily have to be playing your best football at the end of the season to turn it up a notch in the playoffs. But some teams just can't do it. And listen, this Lions team, they just seem like they're a team of destiny, the way they're winning games. Every choice a coach makes works out right. And, it's going to be.
But if you had to say there's a team that we feel we've written off completely, we feel they're done, they're not even a factor. But if they somehow string a few wins together, and it's possible come playoff time, they're scary. And that could be a team like the 49ers. Imagine they win today. They start getting their players back in a weak division. They get in. They could win on the road. And all of a sudden, this is the San Francisco 49ers with all their weapons. They could, they're a long shot type team that's written off where you never know what's going to happen. But you're right, Keith, 100%. The Lions have it so much together now. They're going to be tough to beat.
It's Frisco's problem. San Francisco's problem, biggest problem, I think, is their only path is a wild card now. Or I'm sorry, winning the division now. They probably have no path to wild card, most likely. And they've got to pass 3 teams in the division. So that makes it much that harder.
They're within range if they go on a run.
They could get hot. They could get hot. But the best they can do right now is 10-7. So it's going to be hard to do anything but win the division. And division's winnable because there's no really good teams in front of them. There's mediocre teams.
Well, we were talking about the Jets before the show here, and I don't think they can make the playoffs, but who knows?
Playoff, Mac. Come on, Mac. Come on. Don't even make. Come on.
Well,
that's like someone on welfare talking about going on a fancy vacation. Come on.
I see those people on vacation all the time.
Yes. Before I keep going here, all these comments, Richard. Welcome back, Mac. Thank you very much. Let's see. Good morning. Good morning, David. Glad to have you aboard. Paul Spada. Glad to see you too. Ed Henry. Good morning to you. Let's see what else we got. Yes, Mac. Jets playoffs. See, he agrees with me.
I guess no. There's no. Come on. There's
Listen,
no path for the Jets, even if they win their next 5 games. to get to the playoffs. They'd be 8-9, and they'd be behind the Ravens. You know, even the Broncos got the tiebreaker with them.
Listen,
I mean, mathematically, technically, they're not eliminated yet, but there's no path. They're like done.
Billy's one of my guys, and we have an itch award for the guy who pushes the buttons the best. And Billy's had the name, the award retired in his name now. So there you go.
There you go.
He's talking
jumping in.
He's talking about the Winnipeg, probably. So
we got Pags. We got Pags.
Yeah.
Pags jumping in early. I guess he's on his way.
oh, I get to see
Morning,
Pags.
guys.
Morning, shit, Pags.
Good morning, Pags.
Hey, long time no see, Keith.
I know. I never get to see Pags anymore. It's good to see you.
Well, you know what? It's hard to get here at any time. Like so, anytime I actually have a moment to get on, I'm just getting on.
Yeah, good idea. Nice article the other day I saw you posted as well.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
You know, it was kind of funny because I thought that kid was like a college student. I had no idea that it was for Sportico.
That's cool.
So, it's
What is
amazing
that
how things
article?
happen like that.
What is that article
so-
I'm reading about you, Pags, about monetizing and all that good stuff?
Yeah, that's what he was. He was interested in finding out some of the financials of being a super fan, and that there's only a few of us that are actually monetizing this in a realistic way. So it was kind of that where he was talking to the Raiders fan, the Rams fan, and myself.
Interesting, very interesting. So, Pags, let's get your picks, buddy. We haven't got your picks yet.
So I don't know. I'm not even sure who I picked. I think I picked Atlanta.
All right.
I like Atlanta today going back up against Minnesota. I think Cousins, especially since you put Cousins back up against the wall, obviously he's like, they might bench him, and this is his old team. So I think he's going to go up there and really shine. And you know how I feel about like 5.5 point spreads. I think that's a spread that tells me that they're going to win outright. The other ones I saw was I think I picked against the Giants. I may have picked Buffalo. I'm not even sure who I picked.
You picked the Cowboys and the Bills.
I took the Cowboys. Who's that against? The Giants?
Against the Bengals.
Yeah, well, you know what? Because I don't trust the Bengals.
No.
The Bengals have zero
Cincinnati's
defense.
playing Dallas.
Dallas.
Yeah, the Cowboys.
So,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, so I think that the Cincinnati's defense stinks. So, and again, it was like one of those 5.5 point spreads. And it's a home dog at 5.5. That makes me think that Dallas is going to win that one outright and screw up their draft pick because, they do everything right over there. And I think the last one was was it Miami?
No, you picked the Bills.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, because that line seemed a little funny to me, did it not? Only 3.5 points against, what was it? Is it the Rams or the Chargers?
The Rams, yeah. The Rams, yeah.
Yeah, it was. I thought that line was a little odd. It seems out of whack to me.
Yeah.
So
I agree. All right.
Oh, Dallas absolutely is a mess. Dallas is absolutely a mess. But
yes, they are. So anyway, Keith, do I got to let you go? You ready to go to your show over there?
I can pop off. That's good. You can dive in with Pags. It's been a pleasure.
hey, real quick, Keith, before you go.
Yeah.
What did you think about? Was it a surprise that Penn State scored as many points yesterday?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that one thing that concerns me about Oregon is their defense. Penn State's got an offense from 1980, and they scored nearly 40 points, and that's not a good omen for Oregon going into this playoff.
Yeah, it's a shame the defense couldn't make a stop at any point because that's really you were just waiting for them to make that one stop and maybe tie the game up, but it just didn't. It never happened.
Yeah, it didn't happen. And Penn State played better than I thought. Their offense. I mean, Oregon's really good on offense for sure, but the defense. Right. The times they've run into really good offenses, they struggled. Even against Boise State early in the season, they struggled and barely got out of there alive. So and
with Clemson winning, is Alabama out?
I say yes. If SMU had gotten blown out, is the only scenario I could see where they wouldn't take SMU and take Alabama.
So yeah, because I think they were trying to do everything they could to get Alabama in there, and
Yeah.
I'm glad that they're not going in there. There's no reason for, unless you're winning the championship, that a 3-loss team should be in this.
Yeah, SMU fighting back and tying that game really showed some moxie on their part, and they belong in the tournament. They do.
Yeah. See, I didn't even see the end of that game.
I didn't see Notre Dame, Keith. What happened there?
Notre Dame didn't play. They'll be. I would guess Notre Dame will have the 5th seed.
Okay.
So there's a good reason you didn't see him, Mac.
All right.
Mac throwing shade.
All right, Keith.
Try it.
All right, Keith. You have a good one, my friend.
All right, guys, enjoy the games. Good to see you
It was
back.
good seeing you, Keith.
Good to see you back, Mac.
Take care, Keith, man.
All right. So there we are. We're back to 4. Let's see, guys. I think I'm going to cut out too. I gotta get out of here too. So you guys carry on. Keep up the great work, Jack. You're in charge, and we'll see. Yeah, we'll get some names.
Okay, Max. See, I want to ask you, Pags. Okay, I kid James a lot about the trap game he called early in the year, but it's today's game in Philadelphia. This seriously is a trap game for the Eagles, and the Panthers have been playing better of late. They're not the pushover that they were early in the year. Early in the year, the Eagles just had to show up and they would have won the game. Now, if the Eagles have a bad day, I mean, they're not, good chance they're going to lose. I mean, they have to be on their toes. It's a dangerous game in a sense.
Yeah, a little bit. I tell you that I think I'll be 100% honest. If Texas would have won that game, I would have been more scared. The fact that Georgia beat Texas yesterday, I think our defense is going to be playing a little bit spirited. They're probably excited that they won and that there isn't any question about being in the playoffs or not. And I think that's going to make a little difference.
People might not understand because the Eagles have a number of guys who went to the University of Georgia, so they're probably in a good mood. Otherwise, people would have thought, what the heck is Pags talking about? Georgia and Texas. We have to clear that up.
Right, but I think that this is going to be a lot closer game. I think our defense is just too strong to up against their offense, and their defense has been playing a little bit better. I kind of suspect that today is going to be a day for Kenneth Gainwell. Like, this is not going to be a Barkley day. I think that they save him a little bit. I think that Devonta Smith comes back today, gets his legs back under him, so they're going to probably include him because I think that he will beat their secondary all day long. So this is a good comeback game for him in terms of just getting back off of injury. And I think that the biggest weapons are going to be held back a little bit, and they're going to go with the secondary guys more frequently. And I think that it's going to be like a 30-6 game. Like I kind of have it 31-6, 30-6. That score is not going to be necessarily indicative of a blowout. That it's going to be closer than what you think.
Can Bryce Young do anything with a Vince Fangio defense? I mean, because Bryce Young is coming into his zone, but it's hard to see him have a lot of success against this Eagle defense.
See, I don't think so. I think he may. It depends on their scripted plays. I think their scripted plays could possibly do really well against us. After that, I think once they start to settle in, I mean, they held Lamar Jackson, most of the game, and I kind of think that Bryce Young is not even close to a Lamar Jackson. So I kind of believe that it's going to be they're not going to be able to move the ball really well, except for that first quarter. I'd love to see the Eagles come out and start the car right away and maybe have a drive where they actually score on the first drive, like a touchdown. But I don't hold my breath on that.
Pags, Bryce Young is going to have to roll out because he's like 5'10", and you got those two behemoths in the middle with Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. It's going to be hard for him to really see any traction out there as far as throwing to any receivers that he has. And your secondary is pretty elite with those two young guys out there. So it's going to be tough for him. He's going to have to do a lot of rollouts And they're going to need the Panthers are going to need a lot from Chuba Hubbard. He's had a couple of subpar games lately, even though he's been rolling this year. How's you guys' rush defense? I'm not sure about that.
But we're pretty good. The rush defense is usually, I think we're somewhere around like fifth or sixth. We got like 99 yards is what we're giving up consistently there. I kind of look at it. The Eagles sent 18 plays to the league office talking about Jalen Carter being held, double teams being held. 18 plays. I suspect today, being at home and the referee crowd, that they're going to get an overabundance of holding calls against them, because I think that just Jalen Carter he's just a monster. He's such a beast that it's going to wind up that he's going to take advantage so much that they're going to have to make those calls, specifically because the NFL was like, all right, this is getting a little crazy, that it was 18 plays this week. I think it was 12 plays the week before. I mean, he's getting held nonstop. And the problem is that Jordan Davis is also taking on double teams. So when you got 4 people held up trying to stop 2 guys, and then you have one guy going in like that random guy who's going to be like Vaughn or N'Kobe Dean just shooting the gaps, and then you have one guy at like the defensive ends and everything. I think this could be a really big day for sacks against him, because I don't think the NFL cares about Carolina like that in comparison to like Baltimore or some of these other teams that we played.
Now, this type of year that certain players are having on the Eagles, are they being overshadowed by Saquon Barkley? For example, A.J. Brown, big personality. He always had to be the guy. And I'm not saying he was a prima donna, a bad guy in any way, shape, or form, but he was considered the focal point of that offense, okay? With Jalen Hurts absolutely had to get him the ball. He was number 1. Devontae Smith was 1A. Now you have Saquon Barkley. He's 1, and everyone is like this step behind him, including Jalen Hurts. Is there a tiny bit, I don't want to use the word jealousy, guys feeling, well, maybe they're being diminished a tiny bit, but because Saquon is such a nice guy, no one can really get mad at him?
I don't think so. Obviously, I'm not in the locker room, and winning cures any ailment. Let's talk about egos after we get the ring, is kind of how I feel about this, my personal opinion. I kind of feel that they are all on that same page. Hey, listen, we got enough talent. We have enough talent to be able to win this. I think that the NFL is not as strong. I mean, when you think about teams that I think would give the Eagles a really good match right now, I put 2 teams in that mix, Detroit and Buffalo. I think everybody else is.
Well, they don't really need Buffalo in the Super Bowl, so I wouldn't even go there with that.
Same thing with Detroit. That's what I'm talking about. I'm saying that in the entire NFL, the only 2 teams that I think could give the Eagles a really good game are those 2, and we're not playing any of them. Now, obviously,
the Eagles have at least the number 2 seed pretty much wrapped up. Did they go all out for the number 1 seed to try to get a bye and, have home field advantage? Or is the logic going to be, look, the Lions are probably getting the number 1 seed. We better rest guys at the end and be prepared to play the extra game, because only one team gets a bye for conference.
Right.
And they feel, let's be ready to win those couple of games and go into Detroit and win and rest our guys in peak.
I'm saying that next week is going to determine that. They play Buffalo, and they have 14 guys out right now, most of which are on that defense. Buffalo is going to score points on them, and they're going to expose certain things about that defense. And then they have 3 divisional matches after that. I think that it's going to be tough for them to win outright. So, and could the Eagles win outright? I think their toughest opponent here on out, obviously, is next week against Pittsburgh. And then after that, I mean, that Washington could pose a little bit of a threat, but I think Washington's coming back down to earth right now. So I kind of suspect that they will have a better answer to that next week after the Detroit game against.
But
against Buffalo.
you can't discount this, guys. Even though you don't want to think of it, especially you, Pags. Remember what happened last year? It was smooth sailing, and all of a sudden there was a collapse. And can you imagine the Buffalo beats the Eagles decisively, and then it starts kind of falling apart? I mean, you can't discount that possibility.
Well, last year was a whole different year, and the way that the Eagles were winning was suspect. And that you kind of felt that any moment that the wheels could fall off, and they did. You know, it's like San Francisco came in, exposed us in a bad way. You know, it was our third game in 11 days, and they came in and destroyed us. And then we had, 10 days later, we had Dallas, and we were never still able to recover from that 49ers loss. And it just transcended from there on out for the rest of the season. This is a much different season.
I agree.
The way that they're winning is much more definitive. I think that put Saquon on the team last year, and maybe that calming influence voice may have been the difference. That's the biggest difference, obviously, between these two seasons. Saquon Barkley, and of course the quarterback play, which really has been outstanding. So you put those two things into perspective for this team, and this team's ready to win. I tell you, it's hungry. These kids don't know any better. They don't know that they're not supposed to, that they're rookies. They're not supposed to. It's supposed to take a couple years to get involved in.
Well, Pax and James, I want to hear what you have to say. James, chime in all show. You don't have to wait. But I just want to say this with Nick Sirianni. The differences in coaches. Some coaches have commanded their teams, like a Jim Harbaugh, for example. Andy Reid. They have control of their teams. Nick Sirianni, does he have control of the team? Is it just a case of the players liking him, figuring, Nick's a nice guy, we like him, he's non-threatening? Does he truly have control of that team? Is the attitude like Nick is the boss? We know certain coaches are looked at as being the boss. Is Nick looked at as being that?
I think in the locker room he is. I think he absolutely is the man in charge over there. I think that it's media that's saying all the other stuff. When he has funny, like, he's not the best interview. And that's really kind of a setback to him. From the very door, he had a weirdo interview, and he's always been funny talking to the media. And I kind of feel that starts and spawns the way that the media portrays him as a goofball, and that's how he's looked at in the locker room. I don't think that at all. I think in the locker room, he is the one that everybody looks towards.
This team looks like a better team than the 2022 season. They're better than that year. I mean, they've had great additions in Saquon Barkley, the two rookies at cornerback. I agree with you. And those two guys in the middle defensively are just stalwarts. And so it just makes them more formidable to play against a team like Detroit. Like you said, Detroit's going to have a tough going sledding against their division opponents the last three games and that Buffalo game. And Philadelphia right now, they're just flying on all cylinders right now. They're working like a machine, a well-oiled machine right now. So it's going to be tough. I'm going back. I picked them to win the Super Bowl win the NFC Championship against the Detroit Lions, and I got them going against Kansas City in the Super Bowl, and I like the Eagles to win, so I'm going to stick with that.
Well, Pax is looking sharp. His preseason prediction, the Eagles would play at Detroit in the NFC Championship game, and Pax was a little too worried to come up with a prediction. He didn't want to really come up with a prediction because he didn't like the atmosphere. The Eagles having, if the Eagles were playing in Philadelphia, Pax would have said it. The Eagles are going to the Super Bowl.
100%.
But going to Detroit, he's kind of worried. That's going to be a tough place to win, but it is a winnable game. But something about this Lion team, what Keith Angle was saying, a team of destiny. Something about them, you get the feeling they have to get it done this year. There's a feeling of desperation in Detroit that no other franchise has in the NFL. You know, the Eagles won a Super Bowl not that long ago. Obviously, they want to win it again. They're going to play just as hard as Detroit. But something about this Lion team, it's truly do or die. If they can't get it done this year, they're never going to go to a darn Super Bowl. You get that feeling. Obviously, they would run it back next year, and maybe they could get there. Who knows? But there's a feeling of desperation in Detroit.
I agree with you a little bit there, and I think that is what I don't know if you remember a few weeks back. I said when it comes to that NFC Championship game, that coaching is going to play the biggest role in that, and I feel like he started this past week taking chances that he doesn't necessarily need to take, and it worked out both times for him. One of those times it not working out, he loses that game. So I kind of feel that Dan Campbell is the wild card here a little bit. You know, that if he, by chance, starts to overcoach, that's where the Eagles are going to have the best chance. And like I said, if by chance Detroit
Nick
does not...
Sirianni gambles. He's been known to gamble.
Yeah,
well, I mean, Dan Campbell is the Riverboat Ron 2.0. He takes a lot. I mean, if you look at all of last year, it wasn't just this year. It was last year. He took a lot of chances with fourth downs, and they were very successful with most of them. So, I mean, if it's working, why not continue to use it?
Well, that's exactly it. But I think you go to the well too much sometimes. And that's where I kind of feel that there's a possibility of a falter. And Green Bay's defense is not as good as the Eagles' defense, not by a long shot. So I feel that that's going to be a big difference as well. Again, if by chance the Eagles can get the number 1 seed, I suspect that that we will go back to the Super Bowl without a doubt, because Detroit will not win in Philly, not this year. If we have to go to Detroit, it'll still be tough. It's a winnable game, but it'll still be tough. It wouldn't surprise me if the Eagles lost it. But I kind of feel that, as of right now, that's why next week is such a big week. Detroit gets 10 days off to prepare for Buffalo. And I feel like that 10 days off, especially with the new guys that they have, they had what did they have? 8 guys on defense that were starting, that were on the practice squad or something similar to that, that actually that's going to hurt them. And you'd think that it would work the opposite way, that they'd be more prepared and more rested. But I feel like that they're going to start, that when you are just thrown to the wolves, you figure it out on the fly. When you are working for it, that's where more mistakes happen. And when you have that many people on defense that haven't been there all season long, now all of a sudden you're going to see a lot more mistakes. And I kind of feel that that's where Buffalo's going to take advantage. And then they got to hope that they come back against one of the rivals.
Yeah.
One thing I will say, going back to what Jack was saying about the desperation, I have to disagree slightly, because it's just that they hit on several drafts. They hit on a lot of drafts, and they hit on free agency. So their team, they're within the balance of where they don't have to really let people go in free agency because they can't meet I can't even think, but the amount of money that they have to pay all their players. Right now, they got players within a good window, so they have a 3 to 4 year window of where they have opportunity to get there. I mean, at least I think, especially having paid Jared Goff already, so you're good to go right now.
No, I agree with you in that sense, James, but keep this in mind. They had a big lead in the NFC Championship game, and they looked like they were definitely going to the Super Bowl last year, and somehow it got away. That was devastating in itself. And even Dan Campbell said after the game, the loss last year, it's going to be so hard to get back to this spot again. He was defeated. He was acting like they lost their one chance to ever go to a Super Bowl, and here they are. They, running it back, but even stronger this year. And if they don't get it done, how is the team, the players going to feel coming to training camp next year? They're not going to be, it's going to be hard to be motivated. They'll get their motivation up to an extent. I understand all that. And But we'll see. I want to get on another game. Two disappointing teams. Your team, the New Orleans Saints, James, have to be a colossal disappointment the way they started the year. Wait, they played the Eagles early in the year. The Eagles beat them by 19-16. That was one of Hags. I like to tease James, and James has thick skin, unlike myself. He can take it. When James said early in the year, when the Eagles were playing the Saints, he said, this is a trap game for the Saints. That was, I never let him forget that, but James can take it, and James could finally say, shut up, Jack, I've heard it enough, that line. But I'm even surprised the way it's fallen apart for the Saints. I mean, they have an interim coach. They've won a couple of games with them, then they lost the game. And there's always a danger to me, Pax and James. If you have an interim coach and you start winning some games, the fans and the players say, oh, hire him. But he's not the right guy usually. It's just an adrenaline thing where they win some games. And the Saints really should have a coaching search next year. I have no idea whether that job is appealing or not. To me, it doesn't seem that appealing as far as the NFL jobs go, because you have Derek Carr, who to me is not a franchise quarterback. And you're looking at certain of the players like Alvin Kamara, who could be aging a bit, and it just doesn't seem that appealing a job. But James, you take it over with your Saints.
A lot of the players and the regime that were there are still related to the Sean Payton era. So he's gone now. So I think at this juncture, this is where you're starting to see the transition. It's going to go from slightly a bit of Sean Payton to no Sean Payton. And I think a good start would be to get a head coach outside of the organization. And there's some rumblings about interest in Ben Johnson. Sure, we can have interest in Ben Johnson, but the question is whether or not he has interest in us and coming down there. Is that a destination that he wants to come, like you just said? Probably not. I mean, he's going to have a pick of the litter because of what he's doing in Detroit. And so having somebody like Alvin Kamara, like you said, he's aging. This is probably his peak year right now, 29. He's going to be 30 next year, so he'll have a couple of good seasons left. Clint Kubiak, the offensive coordinator that's supposed to come in and bring in the wide zone offense, it showed well in the first couple of seasons. But I think the real downfall for the Saints is that they got the injury bug. I mean, the most out of anybody in the league. They had like 42% injured. I mean, we're still missing the top two receivers. They're out for the season likely. They have a few offensive line guys that were decent, but they're gone. And then we're waiting on the center. The center went down in that game against the Eagles, and he was gone for like 7 or 8 weeks. So, I mean, a lot of it was really just bad luck and just bad coaching, of course. And so they got rid of Dennis Allen. I think that was one step in the right direction. A win here, I mean, does it really matter? 4-8, I'd rather try to continue to win, but I'd also rather be like in a situation where we need a quarterback to replace Derek Carr.
Would they necessarily draft a quarterback, or would they think, well, we could run it with Derek Carr a while longer?
Look, Derek Carr has shown that he wins games that don't matter. When the games that matter, he wins games that don't matter. He doesn't win the games that really matter against good teams, man. And then when he's got the numbers, they got a guy down in New Orleans that calls him the emperor of empty yards, because he throws a lot of the yards that really are towards the end of the game when defenses let up. And so his stats are like kind of skewed. So it looks really good, but it's really not. And so I'm not really a fan of Derek Carr. I mean, look, he's a good guy. He's a good person or whatever, but he's just not the quarterback. He's not a franchise quarterback, as you said. So, look, I'd rather see them draft a quarterback like Shedeur Sanders if they can even get up there.
Guys, of all the coaches, they're going to be coaching vacancies. Who is the most qualified candidate if you had to hire a coach who could win for you? Okay, the Eagles obviously aren't going to be in the market for a head coach at the end of the year. I know if they get eliminated early in the playoffs, people are going to say Sirianni should get fired. That's a mistake with this level of success during the season. But the Saints are probably going to be in the market. You mentioned Ben Johnson. Is he really the best coaching candidate available? Because the guy to me who would be the best would be Brian Flores, because he has experience and he's had success with the Dolphins. Look what he's done as the defensive coordinator for the Vikings. I mean, but he has baggage, so I don't know would I hire him. But I think he's the assistant coach you're most likely to be able to win with if you hire him. The rest of them are kind of wild cards in a way.
I mean, I'm hearing a little bit about Kyle Shanahan.
Really?
Yeah, like that he might be out, and that something about him going to I don't know if it was Washington or.
Washington has Dan Quinn. They're not going to fire, make a coaching
yeah, not Dan Quinn, but
success.
That he is that he's possibly out in San Francisco.
Wow.
The other person that comes to mind a little bit that I think would actually be a good coach for another team is Brian Dable. I think that he might be out as Giants coach. I think that would be a mistake firing him, but I think he's a good coach. I think he's just got a bad team, and that they really have to get a new GM. That GM made such a blunder.
Vic Fangio being given a second chance. It didn't work out.
No chance. Nope. He already said this is his last job. He's close to home.
Yeah, well, they all say that. I mean, come on. But then situations change. You get a cushiony job elsewhere. And let's say the
when is a head coach a cushiony job? When is a head coach a cushiony job? That's not a cushiony job.
Well, certain franchises are appealing. Like, I know you don't like the Giants, but if you had to compare the Giant job to the Saint job, okay? The Giants are a marquee franchise, a traditional franchise that there's a certain magic to the Giant name. No offense, James, but you don't have that with the Saints. So, like a Bill Belichick, for example, he has Giant roots, so that's not fair. But any of these other guys, like a Ben Johnson, you give him a choice, the Giants or the Saints, something about the Giant name, and the ownership normally gives the head coach I shouldn't say normally gives them some time. They have fired guys, like Pat Schumer, after a certain amount of time. But, some jobs are more cushiony than others.
Why does it always seem that the New York teams do well or do poorly at the exact same time? It always seems that way.
Let me ask you this. The Jet job's going to be open. How good is the Jet head coaching job? Is it the type of job that's someone is going to be salivating, want to get that in the worst way?
I look at that job as that's the spot where a new GM, a new head coach, and a new quarterback are all going to start at the exact same time. And I think that's a good foundation to be able to go 4 or 5 years, start that 4 or 5 year run. Beyond that, I think it's a train wreck. But I think if I was the general manager, they hired me as the new Jets GM. First thing I'm doing is going after an offensive line. I'd re-sign Rodgers for another year, let him be the one that takes out the whoever, or just go with the backup, get our offensive line and defensive line starting to get back into form, and then go after the quarterback the following year. That you take a year.
They did that. They addressed the offensive line during the offseason. They signed guys with Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses in free agency. They drafted the kid from Penn State, Fashanu, which was a dumb move bypassing Brock Bowers. I said that before, during the draft, and I was called out by the other host, CJ Simone. Oh, no, Jack. No, they have to address the offensive line. I mean, come on, Brock Bowers here. I mean, that's what really gets to me when I know more than these NFL evaluators. They should know far more than me. I shouldn't even be in their league as far as knowing something like Brock Bowers is such an obvious choice because he's going to be such a great impact player for years to come. I mean, even Nick Saban was saying the two guys who were nightmares for him to coach against in college were Malik Neighbors and Brock Bowers. I mean, if you get Saban saying it, that's more than enough. I would get on the phone to Nick Saban. And if he tells that to me, that's good enough for me. And it's played out that way, or will play out that way with Malik Neighbors, as time goes along.
Well, Jack, let me say this about your offense. Your offense looks like it should be star-studded right now with all the players that they have. I think the one common denominator that needs to be subtracted from the equation is Aaron Rodgers. If I'm a coach coming in there and I see this team and I see the potential there, but I see a whole bunch of drama. I don't want that, especially with young players. An older player should be somebody that's seasoned and ready to galvanize these guys and guide them in the right direction. That's not Aaron Rodgers. He needs to be taken out of that team. I wouldn't keep him, like Pag said, or you just get rid of him and play a bridge. Maybe take in Tyrod Taylor and let him play, or get another free agent quarterback and allow him to lead his team and draft a quarterback. I mean, you got two or three.
It's not like getting another secretary, James. Oh, I'm going to draft a quarterback. You got to get the right. When they drafted a quarterback last year, Jordan Travis, he's been, injured. They knew he was injured going into the year. You're not going to get. I mean, if they just could get Shedeur Sanders, absolutely get rid of Aaron Rodgers, absolutely. But what are the chances of them being able to get him?
It's a possibility. They won 3 games.
Top college quarterback. They're not. No one tanks games. That's ridiculous. The players are trying to win.
How many games do you think they're going to win out of these next few games? How many games do you think they're going to win?
You know what you could do? If you're a head coach and you got 1 game left and you're going to come back, yeah, you manipulate your lineup the way the Eagles did when they played Washington that last game. They didn't tank at the Eagles. The players on the field were trying to do the best they can, but the players that were put in, the quarterbacks that were playing that game, I mean, it was obvious the Eagles were concerned with winning the game. If they won the game, fine. If they didn't, great. They'd be picking high in the draft. But that's only 1 game. Doug Peterson wouldn't have done it as Eagle coach if they had 5 games left. And he knew he was going to come back, Doug Peterson, so he could afford to do that.
He didn't come back, though.
Oh, he didn't come back the next year.
No.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that. But he didn't know that at the time. No, he didn't come back. Doug Peterson didn't come back, and correct me if I'm wrong, as Eagle head coach. He wasn't fired because they wanted to get rid of him per se. They wanted to put in a new philosophy and new coaches and new this, new that, and he didn't want to go along with it. Which indicated to me he didn't mind moving on if he had to. But they didn't outright fire him. No, you didn't get it done. Goodbye, Doug. It wasn't that case. They were negotiating with him, and the negotiation didn't kind of work out.
Right. No, and I get that. So,
yeah.
That's it.
And I'm going to make a prediction. Everyone's assuming Doug Peterson gets fired as the Jaguar coach. I know they've been losing. I'm predicting he survives it some way, somehow. And he's back next year. I get the feeling the owner likes him. And he has a resume there. And it's Jacksonville, so people aren't going crazy about, firing a coach there. I have a feeling Doug Peterson survives, as the Jag coach.
They're 2-10.
I know, but that's not always the answer. Bill Parcells was what? He won 3 games his first year, and he had to beg to come back to George Young. They let him come back. Doug Peterson has a resume. You know what he can do. It hasn't worked out. You have to look at the reasons why it hasn't worked out.
I don't think he comes back, but you never know.
Right.
So who do you guys think wins today? The Giants today. Show some fight. The Saints at the Giants.
Well, I'll go first.
The Giants.
You got the Giants at home? I got the Saints.
That might have been my other game. I think I picked New Orleans to beat the Giants. Yeah,
well, that's like an audition game for Drew Lock. So the Giants are now playing Drew Lock over Tommy Cutlets because they're getting criticism from within their own locker room. Why are we doing this? because Drew Lock gives him a better chance supposedly to win. But this is it for Drew Lock. He has an audition in these games to show he's a competent NFL quarterback. And if he doesn't get it done with the Giants, I mean, no excuses. I mean, and
he's a first round bust, man. I mean, he was the third on the depth charts. It just that says
round. He may have gone early in the second, I think.
I think he was first. Yeah, I think he was first.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters.
Right. And I think the Saints win this game. I picked them to cover the spread, but I don't know. We'll see.
Exactly.
Okay, Cleveland's playing at Pittsburgh. Okay, kind of interesting game. Jameis Winston was upset. He's on a quarterback. You feel, with his pick sixes, could drive you crazy. I mean, with Jameis. I went to a game at Tampa Bay in Jameis Winston's last year when he was starting for Tampa Bay. He started the game with a pick six, and then in overtime, he ended the game by throwing a pick six. And I remember not even being a fan, not caring who won, leaving the stadium, shaking my head. Pick sixes are so devastating. People don't realize it. You throw one pick six, you know what that means. In your next two possessions, if you take your team down the field for a touchdown, and the next time get them in position and they kick a field goal, people are going to say, oh, the quarterback's really playing well. That means you've had 3 possessions and you're plus 3 points. When you think of it, see, you're doing lousy. I mean, it's devastating, a pick six. And Steelers, Russell Wilson. I mean, he's having a good year. How much faith do you have in him going forward?
I don't think they have a choice. Can't go back to what's his face. I think that the Steelers. I just don't think you can. I think that you live and die by the sword, and your sword right now is Russell. I think the one thing I like about Jameis is that, listen, where's Cleveland going? So he's slinging it out there, and that's what I kind of like about it. Beyond that, I mean, who would have thought that they would have scored that many points last week? I got the Steelers winning this game, but he's bringing some fire at least to that team, and that is something that you can't buy.
Jameis has always been a lightning rod. I mean, he'll win you a game. He'll have you in contention to win a game, but then he'll lose you a game with a boneheaded play like a pick six. Like you said, he's a gunslinger, man. He threw for 497 in that last game. 4 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. 2 of them were the pick sixes were devastating. I think that's just what it was. And look, he's the player that he's like friendly fire. He'll shoot the enemy, but he also shoot his team as well at the same time. It's just like he shoot himself in the foot. It's just like, man, can you? And that's been his mantra his whole career, even at Florida State. He did the same thing. So look, he can win this game, but I like to win this game. They're just too talented on all. I mean, they're stable. They're stable at the quarterback position. They're stable at the offensive line, their run game, their defense, everywhere. It's just, I think they're going to win this game. They lost that game, a close game, in the last time they played in the snow.
What do you do if you're Cleveland with Deshaun Watson? He has 2 years left. It's easy to say, oh, get rid of him. But when you're paying that type of money, you don't want to do that. If you own a company, if you own a store, guys, and you have a worker that's really so-so, he's not producing much, you don't want to pay him all that money for not working, send him on his way. You want him to at least stock your shelves, to do something, get some use out of him. Okay? So what do you do if you're the Browns, if you're Deshaun Watson, and you can't count on him to be the starting quarterback? My prediction was wrong. I thought he would come back this year and be good. Okay? And he hasn't. And it's easy to say, well, they got to draft a quarterback. That's your solution, James, always draft a quarterback. But if they're not there, obviously you can always draft a quarterback, but how many good ones are out there? It's unpredictable. And unless Cleveland can get a really good prospect, it doesn't solve your problem. I mean, quarterbacks like Miami, Cam Ward, is he good enough if he's available? Is Quinn Ewers good enough? They could draft these guys, but these guys might not be ready to play.
I think the physical tools for Deshaun Watson are still there. I think mentally he checked out with all the other stuff that's going on off the field. I think part of that had to be a reason. And you know, I mean, clearly no one is siding with him. And I don't know how mentally tough he is. He just, you know, he probably could. Obviously, you can see he was crying when he got injured and the fans were booing him or clapping that he got injured. It's just a tough situation. So if he can regroup mentally while recovering from this injury, I think there's an opportunity for him to rebound. I think that's a big if, you know, because I mean, at this juncture of his career, he's getting to the point where some of his athleticism may be waning, especially with was it Achilles injury as well. So it's going to be tough for him to come back, and then he's just got to regroup mentally. But Jameis could be the guy. Jameis could be the guy for them.
He could be a bridge quarterback, but you never know. Sometimes look for Geno Smith resurgence. Did Jalen Hurts have a resurgence this year? You think he just steadied the ship? Because people, you know, he was everyone's darling a couple of years ago when he took the Eagles to the Super Bowl. People loved his leadership, and then something went awry last year. But I think he's not in the news. He slipped under the radar this year, which I think is a good thing.
Hey guys, I don't mean I got to cut this off real fast. I got to get rolling here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I apologize. Hey, listen, you guys have a great day. I hope the Saints win. I don't care if the Jets win or not. So.
I'm just going to tell you this. One of my 3 picks, I took the Dolphins over the Jets today, which should tell you how
exactly how strong you feel about your team.
We'll see you, Pax.
Have a good one, Pax.
Yeah.
All right, take care, guys.
Yeah. James, chances are we're not going to make it to the top of the hour. That's a long, you know, this is like, you know what, we might cut it at the half hour. That would be our marathon. To take it to all the way to the top of the hour would be like an ultra marathon. That would be like one of these 56-mile races or something, which is a little, you know.
Jack, I know you have a triathlete spirit in you. I know you can actually.
I never ran. I never did a triathlon. You know what? We might switch to a couple other, you know, sports like baseball, free agency, and so on. But let's go over these games here. I like Pittsburgh over Cleveland. They should win this something like 27-17. If I tell you Mike Tomlin is the best coach in the NFL, do you agree with me?
No, I don't agree. For this particular season, no, I don't think he's the best coach. I think
I'm not saying who's coach of the year, James. I'm saying who is the best coach in the NFL. If you could hire one coach, who would you have the most faith in? And I know there are a couple of other names out there that are very viable, but I love Coach Tomlin. He wins every year. He's in the mix, okay? And he has control of his team. He has control of the locker room. You never hear players, and if a player shows discontent, he handles it. And he doesn't go overboard handling it with all the dramatics. He has a way of handling it. He has a steady hand. I love Coach Tomlin.
If I had to choose, if I had a top 5 coaches coming in my office to be interviewed, I'm going to take Andy Reid, but Tomlin would be in my top 5, probably top 3. I would say Tomlin would be there, but I'd have to take Andy Reid, man. It's just, for whatever reason, he seems to be like a very quiet leader. He doesn't shout. He's not going to raise his voice, but he keeps, for whatever reason, he seems to have control of that team. Even when someone like Travis Kelce got in his face in the Super Bowl, he just let it fly right off his shoulder and stayed in control and won that game. So yeah, I would take Andy Reid number 1, hands down. No ifs, ands, or buts. It'd be Andy Reid, the guy in San Francisco, Shanahan, and Tomlin would be number 3.
You know, Kyle Shanahan's intriguing. They haven't quite won a Super Bowl, and they have loads of talent there. I mean, he's a good coach. I'm not saying anything otherwise, but you have to look at what these coaches have to work with. I mean, he did inherit Mike Tomlin, the franchise quarterback, and Ben Roethlisberger. But Ben Roethlisberger is a very difficult guy to handle, his personality, yet Mike Tomlin handled him. Everyone knew Mike Tomlin was the boss when Big Ben was there. Big Ben wasn't calling the shots. Okay, basically, we knew, Mike Tomlin was. I mean, we're seeing things now with George Pickens, having problems, emotional this and that on the field, these needless penalties because he lets his emotions get the better of him. Mike Tomlin's not going overboard, but he's addressing it, and he's even saying it to the media. I mean, when you try to defend the guy who does the wrong thing, you just make it worse. I mean, you make it a lot worse at times. Like the late hit that was on Lamar Jackson. You hear C.J. Stroud say about his player, we got his back. You want to know something? If I'm the commissioner, I'm saying, okay, you got his back. I'm suspending this guy for even an extra game now. You're not helping the situation by having a guy's back who's doing the wrong thing, okay? But I kind of really like Mike Tomlin. Okay, Minnesota. I mean, Atlanta, Minnesota. I like Minnesota to win that game decisively. I just think Atlanta's floundering right now. They're tied with Tampa Bay, the Falcons, for the lead in that division. But the Falcons have the tiebreaker. So in reality, they're up one game. Okay, Minnesota. I don't want to say they've slipped under the radar. They've only lost a couple of games, but I don't think they're that good. I don't consider them a threat in the NFC. The two teams I consider a threat to the Lions, okay, would be the Eagles, who we talked about before, and the Packers.
Yeah.
I don't look at the Vikings as quite being that same type of threat. What about you?
No, I agree. I think the Vikings are this is a team you guys spoke of peaking. This is a team that's likely peaked. They are what they are. What you see is what you get. There's no ceiling that's going to raise up a little bit higher for them. I think they with the talent that they have offensively, that's where they are. Because I think they go as far as what Sam Darnold is. That's what they go as far. If they had a quarterback differently other than him, let's just say if I switched out Darnold with the Pat Mahomes there, then I say their ceiling will be a little bit higher because you have a receiver like Justin Jefferson, that
and Jordan Addison,
and Addison. So it would be a tale of
a running game,
two different tales. Yes, they'd be much different. So they go as far as what Sam Darnold is. But with that said, the Falcons. I think the Falcons may have an opportunity to win this game. First of all, they're at the head of the division of the NFC South at 6-6, and they got Tampa Bay on their tail. This is a game where Kirk Cousins, look, they lost the last three. Kirk Cousins hasn't thrown a touchdown in the last three games. In that last game, he threw 4 interceptions to the Chargers. He gets a resurgence here. I think he comes back. He's going to show the Vikings that, look, I went away to another team. You didn't want to pay me more money here. So I'm going to show you what you're missing here. And I'm going to come in and blow this team out. And I think the Vikings secondary is the prime secondary to exploit because they're not that great. They're in the bottom half of the league, but their rush defense is pretty good, and their pass rush is really good. So we'll see. But I think that everybody's calling for Michael Penix to be the starting quarterback, which is stupid. I wouldn't dare to change quarterbacks right now.
No, I agree with you.
You got to play you got to play Kirk Cousins the full season. And then Michael Penix will come in next season if things start to go awry early in the season. But
you don't know what Penix could provide, you get him in. I mean, he's coming in as a rookie quarterback, and Kirk Cousins is the guy but I think today Kirk Cousins is having a rough day. Keep this in mind. You say, he's going back to Minnesota. He's going to be motivated against his old team. You're talking like a fan, James. You're too knowledgeable for that. James, he's going against Brian Flores' Viking defense, who went against Kirk Cousins in practice all of last season. He's going against the defense he practiced against. That's familiarity. And when there's a ton of familiarity, it favors the defense and the outstanding defensive coach in Brian Flores. They know how to defend this guy because they practiced it all of last year going against them. Kirk Cousins isn't waving a magic wand as a one-man crew. He's not going to light up the Viking defense. I'm telling you. You're probably going to text me later saying you were right, Jack, when Kirk Cousins is having a dismal game.
I don't know, Jack. Sometimes there's knowledge. Like you said, I'm knowledgeable. I appreciate that. And sometimes that's intuition. In this regard, I just have a little bit of intuition in thinking that he has no opportunity. And then he's probably thinking the same thing. I got to go out there, lead my team to a victory. We're 6-6. We're trying to get through this team and get to the next team and win the division, because we got a team right on our backs in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And if we don't win this division, we're likely not going to the playoffs, because that's just how tight and how mediocre the NFC South is. So I think he's going to go back up there. But you're right. I will say it right here on the big football show. If he doesn't do any well, I'm going to text Jack and I'm going to come on the next show and admit I was wrong.
No, that's okay. I mean, I've been wrong enough. The Sam Darnold situation is interesting. He signed a 1-year contract for $10 million to go to the Vikings, and he knew he was going to start, even with them drafting J.J. McCarthy, because the plan was to let McCarthy at least most of the year develop and see how Sam Darnold is doing. But then McCarthy got injured. So Sam Darnold was given the whole season, and he's performed wonderfully, but he has the perfect team. He has all the weapons and the offensive line. He has Kevin O'Connell, an excellent quarterback coach, great quarterback coach. He's not going to get a better situation than this. But J.J. McCarthy comes back next year. And maybe the Vikings will wonder if they could re-sign Sam Darnold, who's a free agent, for 1 year. At a reasonable price. Instead of $10 million, maybe they give him $25 million for the year if Sam Darnold will take it, until J.J. McCarthy will take over. But why would Sam Darnold want that? He's going to be looking to be a franchise quarterback elsewhere. And even though I predicted he'd have this success with the Vikings, I predicted it in large part because it was a great fit. Where would he go? It doesn't mean he can't have success with another team. Who's going to want to sign him? Would it be the Raiders necessarily? Or might they draft a quarterback? Would it be Cleveland? I'm not sure. I don't think Sam Darnold goes to a team and he's a difference maker, per se. Goes to a weak team and he kind of lights it up. I think it could be another Geno Smith, conceivably, in the right situation and be fine. But I'm not sure what's going to be with Sam Darnold next year. There's a little talk about maybe with the Giants. Who knows? They might want to pay him. There's even a little talk about him coming back to the Jets. And while I think he could be successful wherever he goes, I'm not sold on him being a franchise quarterback elsewhere. And he has to make a decision as much as the Vikings do.
Look, I like your proposal in saying offering him maybe $25 million for 1 year to be a bridge quarterback, because to me that's just where he is. He's having success right now, but you can see some of the issues that got him, in the positions that he was with the previous teams that aforementioned teams that he was with the Jets and the Panthers. With that said, why not just take? I mean, if I want to go to another team, I would want it to be in an ideal situation like I'm in right now currently with the Vikings. You don't want to go to a team where they're really going to exploit your weaknesses more than your strengths, because you just look at the teams that you were with the Jets and the Panthers. Those two, unfortunately, I hate to say this, were not good teams when he was there with the Jets. And, of course, the Panthers, they weren't good as well. He's in an ideal situation to say, okay, I can play 1 more year, take a $25 million contract, whatever it may be. Obviously, be more than $10 million, because I think he exceeded expectations of what he was going to be this year. He exceeded the expectations, and so that would give him a contract to be with the Vikings 1 more year and to be a bridge for McCarthy.
But when he was with the Jets, it's easy to forget. Joe Douglas, the GM, seriously considered continuing with Sam Darnold, but because the Jets were going number 2 overall in the draft, the attitude was, we're never going to draft this high again. We got to now take a quarterback. So it wasn't clear cut as far as moving on from Sam Darnold. It was kind of like the same situation with the Bears with Justin Fields. It wasn't clear cut, but they figured they were going number 1 overall in the draft. They're never going to have a chance to draft this high again. So, like, to move on from him in that sense. But then you're right. He went to Carolina. He was given the starting job. He failed there. But it's important to note, Baker Mayfield failed there. So was it the Carolina culture that contributed a lot to that? And then
Exactly.
And Baker, look how successful he's been with Tampa Bay. So I don't want to hear Baker got better all of a sudden. And Baker wasn't bad with Cleveland. He was there 4 years, Baker Mayfield, had 2 good seasons out of the 4. And the reason the Browns moved on from Baker Mayfield was because they had a chance to get Deshaun Watson. They got a guy who they thought was going to be an elite quarterback, who was an elite quarterback, but it obviously didn't work out. And then he had his reset, Sam Darnold, 1 year as a 49er backup to Brock Purdy, which was fine. And now he kind of like moved on. But it's intriguing what might be out there for Sam Darnold or what might not be out there. But let me throw this at you. If the Vikings somehow surprise us, imagine they win the Super Bowl with Sam Darnold as their quarterback. They can't move on from him. I don't want to hear about J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy, at that point, you got to trade him or do something. Or keep him as a backup. But Sam Darnold will have to be given a decent contract. Because could you imagine the Vikings win the Super Bowl and they don't want to pay Sam? Goodbye, Sam. And they go with J.J. McCarthy and it doesn't work out.
So let's just say he wins the Super Bowl. He would have to go on a run of a equivalent to what's the guy that played for the Ravens and he plays for the Colts now. Joe
Flacco.
Joe Flacco. He'd have to go on a run like that. And I think that's what he got him paid, I believe. So in order to get the money.
Backup, but no, with Cleveland he went on the run. Is that what you're talking about? Was the backup?
No. He
was the Raven starter all along. No. Flacco was the Raven starter. Yeah, no, you're thinking the better example would be Dak Prescott. Tony Romo was out with the injury, and everyone is still.
No, I mean Flacco when they won the Super Bowl. Nobody expected him to win the Super Bowl. Flacco went on a fantastic run offensively because they didn't play that great in the regular season, but they went on an excellent run. They won the Super Bowl.
Flacco was their starter. He was their franchise quarterback regardless. Flacco was taken number 18 overall in the draft out of Delaware. So he was a mid first round draft choice basically, but he was going to be the Raven quarterback the following year regardless, unless he was really going to be bad. Darnold was considered a bridge quarterback this season, and he's really, he's balled. He's played outstanding. You have so many guys who are starters, and if you look at the various teams, they're just waiting for another opportunity, and they're kind of in hiding. Jimmy Garoppolo, he's the Ram backup. People don't realize that. They've forgotten about him. He runs the opposition's plays. He's valuable in that sense. Carson Wentz, he's the chief backup. These guys are kind of resetting, waiting for something to open up somewhere. And some guys could just have a cushiony job. Like if you're Carson Wentz, you might be thinking, I just want to pick up a check, be part of the team. I could chill out, Patrick Mahomes, he's great. He's going to play. I'm good with it. I'll just be ready if he's injured, But let me take a look at another game. Speaking, we have spoke about Baker Mayfield, Raiders at the Buccaneers. What do you make out of that game?
We can give this 2 minutes. I just think that the Bucs.
Your sound.
Sorry. We can give this 2 minutes.
You're sounding, James. It's kind of
Staticky.
Yeah, not so staticky. Your voice is sounding like it's kind of away. We could hear you, but the mic something is off. Now I can't hear you at all. We were better before. I could hear you. You're like the Raiders now. I can't hear you, James. Still can't hear you. I'll talk a little bit, and I'll cut in every once in a while, and I'll ask, the voice there. But the Raiders at the Buccaneers, big game for the Buccaneers, and the Buccaneers the last few years, I mean, and after they won the Super Bowl with Tom Brady, they still, have always found ways to win the division. 9-8 record, 8-9 record. Regardless, they've been in a weak division, but they've gone to the playoffs. And last year, they won the playoffs, won their division, weak division, and beat the Eagles in the playoff game. And they competed against the Lions in the playoff loss. I mean, they weren't run over; they were competitive in that game. And to the Buccaneers, Todd Bowles. It didn't work out with Todd Bowles with the Jets, but he's been a good coach with the Buccaneers. He was their defensive coordinator when they won the Super Bowl. I mean, he took over for George Arians. They've been successful with him as their head coach.
So I think that the Bucs are just a much better team here versus the Raiders. I don't think the Raiders have a chance. They're 2-10, I believe. Yeah, so 2-10. And the Bucs need to stay in contention with the Falcons in order to win the division. They're pretty close. Baker Mayfield has been a great quarterback for them.
Well, they're tied, but they're game behind with the tiebreaker. They're game behind the Falcons.
Right. So I don't know if they meet up again. Have they played both games? I think they have played both.
The Saints might be a couple of games behind. I'm not sure where the Saints stand with a tiebreaker. But the Saints, what are the Saints, 4-8?
Yeah, they're 2 games behind. So
right,
yeah.
So the Saints aren't completely out of it.
Right.
Saints aren't completely out of it. If Falcons lose today, and
but the Saints. I mean, we've talked about this Friday night. The Saints still play some tough teams. They're gonna play. Who is it?
Well, let's forget. Please don't torture me by telling me the Saints schedule, please. I don't want to hear who they have to play. I just threw it out there that they have an outside chance.
Yeah, it's very outside.
One of our listeners before, who I'm sure was joking around, can the Jets still make the playoffs? And Mac, come on, that's ridiculous. But if you tell me the Saints still have a chance, it doesn't fall under the classification of being ridiculous. Okay, I mean it comes more under the classification of an outside chance. Outside chance. More. It's more than a long shot. It's an outside chance. How's that?
It's definitely an outside chance. I agree with you. But I think the Bucs win at home against the Raiders. They have they had a great find in Bucky Irving as a running back. He's doing well as a rookie. And their running game is just incredible. So I don't think the Raiders have enough. And they're totally dysfunctional as an organization and as a team. So the Bucs
played the Chiefs close. They were in a position to beat the Chiefs. So I don't think this game is a gimme. I don't think any team that plays the Raiders, it's a gimme. I mean,
played the rival close. That was their rival, the Chiefs, though.
Okay, I understand. And when you play the Chiefs, you're more up for the game. It's prime time and the whole bit. Aiden O'Connell is starting as the Raider quarterback. There's a danger there that if he could play a few good games, you might think, he could be our guy next year. I mean, unless you were high on him to begin with and he's finally fulfilling his potential, you think the Raiders have to be in the market for a quarterback, next year. But once again, how many free agent NFL quarterbacks available who you feel comfortable making your franchise guy, and how many college quarterbacks are there? I mean, I don't know about a guy like a Carson Beck, who they could get, how good he would really be. A Cam Ward. I like Shedeur Sanders a lot. I like Arch Manning a lot. Arch Manning's not coming out next year. He's going to be in college. But Shador Sanders is coming out, and I do like him an awful lot. But only one team is going to be able to draft him. So you don't know where you're going to be at the end of the season in a position, to draft the guy. But Aiden O'Connell, what could I tell you? Gardner Minshew is hurt. It's hard for me to envision the Raiders running it back with those guys.
Those two guys are two backup at best. They're two backup quarterbacks at best. And that's what they're playing with right now. And so Gardner Minshew is a bridge quarterback. He's a journeyman. I think he's exceeded his expectations as a quarterback. He's got 1 or 2 games a year that he gives you some flashes or shows flashes. But other than that, you clearly see he is what he is. The evidence has been there the past few seasons that he's played in the league. And I think he's just a great backup or a bridge quarterback. So they got to draft somebody. They either got to draft, or if a quarterback is open in free agency, I don't know who's going to be available. They're going to have to pick somebody else.
Sam Darnold, Geno Smith. If Seattle might not sign Geno Smith, they're going to look at their options. But Geno's exceeded expectations when, after being a bridge quarterback, a backup, I should say, more backup for a lot of years, after being a starter coming into the league. He's a rarity that a guy could have a second act like that, a second act that's better than his first act, okay, late on in his career. That's a rarity. You can't count on it, okay? I mean, It used to drive me crazy, like when our great co-host Mac would tell me college quarterbacks, and Mac is always sharper evaluating college quarterbacks than I am. He has a much better track record, so I defer to him. But he would tell me, the Patriots got Tom Brady in the 6th round. You could wait. That's a crazy aberration. I don't want to hear about that. Like, that means don't make investments. Just go out and buy a lottery ticket, and I could point to someone who got their fortune that way.
Tom Brady is an exception. He's an exception. He's not the rule.
I'm a major exception. Dak Prescott in the 4th round. These guys' exceptions, sometimes you hit upon them. Good. If you like a guy and he's a little late in the draft, yes, you should absolutely take a fly on him, and it might work out. But, okay, so we both like Tampa Bay in that game, over the Raiders. The Jaguars at the Titans. That's the ho-hum game of the day.
That nobody should be watching. That's the game you get up and go take care of some laundry or whatever it is you need to do if that game's on. Will Levis is playing a little bit better, and he's got a second number 2 overall defense to help give him the ball, get him more plays. Jacksonville is just, I don't know. I don't know what to make of Jacksonville. They're talented offensively. They have good names on defense, yet they're 2-10. I just don't understand that, and I think you're saying that Peterson should keep his job. I just don't know.
No. I'm not saying what I think should happen. I think what's going to happen. I believe the owner is a patient owner there. I do, and he had to get rid of Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer was ridiculous. The way he acted and everything. But with Doug Peterson, the owner gave him a vote of confidence, and I know what they say about a vote of confidence. We'll see how the rest of the year plays out. Trevor Lawrence is out. Mac Jones is in. Mac Jones has been awful as a backup for the Jags. He lost after having a good rookie season. Mac Jones with the Patriots, he was awful after that. And now he's awful with the Jags. Will Levis, you're right, with Tennessee. He's auditioning to an extent. If he plays well the rest of the year, they go forward with Will Levis. He's going to start for Tennessee next year. Okay, so there's kind of a lot riding on that. I see a low-scoring game. I could see like the Titans winning like 14-13, one of those ho-hum games like you described it.
I agree. I think it's just a low-scoring affair, and I don't see. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Jacksonville wins this game, but I got the Titans winning.
Okay, we're talking now the New York Jets against the Miami Dolphins. They say pride matters. I'm making a prediction now. The Jets don't show up. They lose this game something like 31-13. And today's going to remind us how lost the season it is if you're a Jet fan. Because I'm going to tell you, I got no enthusiasm for this game. I'm going to watch it. As a Jet fan, I watch all their games, okay? And I root for the Jets. But it's hard to root for them in this game because, I mean, we've been teased a good number of games. There have been so many losses, games that they should have won. And I know the old cliche, they could easily be 9-3 instead of 3-9. And that's the truth. They've had games where the offense over and over fizzles out at the end of the game, fizzles out in the second half, and the game's there to still be won. Aaron Rodgers gets some yardage, but then fizzles out completely, and they turn the ball over and they lose. Or when the offense gets a lead late in the game, the defense fizzles out and the opposition, drives down the field, or special teams, it's this, it's that. Even though the special teams was good against Seattle, but they look like they're going to win these games, but they wind up losing it. But I think today, the Dolphins coming off a loss, the Dolphins still having a slight chance of making a playoff run. I think in Miami, Miami wins decisively. Breece Hall is out, Sauce Gardner's out. Call it 31-13 Miami.
Jack, look, the Jets defense is ranked number 3 overall. Number 3, can't they play to their potential there? I mean, they should be able to. I think the offense is the problem.
Whoa, I didn't say that. They have the 3rd-ranked defense in the NFL. Are you sure?
Yes, absolutely.
And why are they losing these games?
Yeah, I think it's their offense. Their offense is really shooting them in the foot. And I think a lot of it has to do with the dysfunction with Aaron Rodgers.
James, they turned the ball over to their defense late in games with a lead, and the opposition scored. Even Anthony Richardson took the Colts down the field against their defense, this elite defense. Same thing with Geno Smith in Seattle. We've had leads we've given up. And dysfunction with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is, from all indications, is not unpopular in the locker room, that he gets along with the guys. We would hear something slip out of the locker room or in the media of someone being unhappy with Aaron Rodgers. We would hear even anonymous reports, players saying this and that. The most we've heard that's come out of the locker room is the players might feel, well, we haven't gotten the same player we thought we would. He's past his prime. But that's not a knock on him being toxic. Even though I don't like his personality lately, James. He turned me off by saying, he has nothing to prove in these games. That's a big turnoff to me.
And he threw one of the players that was there, Mike Williams, under the bus.
You're right. That was bad.
Well, look, I mean, I think they have an opportunity to win a game here, but it's just going to be one of the same old things where they probably either have the lead or something's going to happen to where they lose the game, unfortunately. And I think the Dolphins win here.
Yeah, you look for close game or not?
I think it might be a closer game than people think. Because I like their defense. I like the secondary. Sauce is coming on as of late. I think
Sauce is going to be out. So
yeah. So I mean, they're a little bit better defensively with the secondary. I mean, can they play with this Dolphins high flying offense? Yes, I think they can. So I mean,
we heard you mention Sauce about him not being the player he was in his rookie year, this and that. But I'll tell you, he was outstanding against DK Metcalf. Outstanding last week.
He sure was.
Yeah.
Well, I think that continues. I think he has an opportunity to play with these receivers, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. I think he can.
Sauce is out today, from what I heard. So yeah.
Who's out?
Sauce Gardner.
Is he really?
I believe he's out. You could check that as I'm talking, but I believe he is out, and that's going to be,
that's going to hurt them.
And Breece Hall out, not being able to run the ball. It's indicating to me. Check the injury reporters were talking, and then get back to me and correct me if I'm wrong. But
Yeah, that's
what-
going to hurt them.
Yeah, the injury fact as well. The Seattle Seahawks against the Arizona Cardinals. Talk about a game that's hard to pick. That's a hard game to pick.
It is a hard game to pick. I wasn't sure. That's why I didn't pick them as one of my picks for our picks for this week 13. Look, I think the Cardinals are just a wild card. You don't know what you're going to get from them. Either they're going to be high flying one moment, and Kyler Murray is looking like a all pro quarterback, and then some game they lose a game. Like, okay, you think they're going to win this game, and then they lose, and then they play up to they play up to their talent. They play up to, like, say for instance, they play a team like 49ers or the Falcons, or in the division. Like they're still in the mix. Both these teams are still in the mix because that division is pretty hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, Arizona, are they in first place in their division, I think? Or are they tied? Wait. Arizona. No, Arizona's a game behind Seattle. I'm sorry, they're not tied. Wow, that division, Seattle's in first, 7-5. Arizona and the Rams a game behind 6-6, and the 49ers at 5-7, 2 games out. Basically, have to run the table. The Niners,
Right.
I hate to look at a big picture and tell a team you got to win 5 in a row. You got to take it a week at a time and see how it plays out. In other words, you could tell yourself this week's game is like a must game. You just got to win this game and just focus on this game, because it's so much harder to think, oh, we got to win all these games in a row. But but push comes to shove in that game. I like Seattle to beat Arizona 2017. It's a big game because if Arizona wins, they tie Seattle for first. If Seattle wins, they go 2 games ahead of Arizona, and Arizona's unlikely to be in the playoffs. So yeah, it's actually a little bigger for Arizona slightly than it would be for Seattle. The Buffalo Bills against the Rams. I mean, the Bills are riding high. Does it continue going to LA?
Look, I picked. That's one of my picks. I got Buffalo to win that game. I think the Rams, they're talent wise, they're playing with what they have. I mean, I think the coaching is phenomenal there under Sean McVay. But they're not going to have enough for Buffalo, even at home. I think Buffalo is just flying high right now, and Buffalo wants to get that number 1 seed. So they're going to have to obviously continue to win out in order to keep up with Kansas City, although Kansas City we'll get to them later, but has 2 games at the end of the season against the Steelers and the Broncos. That's going to be tough for them. But Buffalo looks good. I like they have a top 10 offense and a top 15 defense. I just think they'll be too much. They got Amari Cooper back last week, scored a touchdown. That should be a lot for them as well to continue to be another weapon for Josh Allen. I like the Bills. Excuse me.
Yeah, a team can't get up for every game. I mean, athletes are human. I mean, you're doing it week in, week out. Some games you're up for higher than other games. And I think if you're a player, you look to see how many people are watching the game. If you're on Monday Night Football, you feel you're on prime time. You're the only game. Sunday Night Football is great. Everyone is watching. More so, I think, than Monday night, I would believe. I don't know what the ratings are. But if I'm a player, I'm psyched if I'm like on a, Sunday Night Football. The whole nation is watching me. But it's hard to imagine the Bills being up for this game against the Rams, because they've had so many games they've had to be up, up for on teams that they played against, in those type games. But I think they go to LA. It's home field advantage means very little for the LA Rams. They don't have a strong fan base per se. I feel the Bills find a way they edge the game out, but I think it'll be within the point thing. I could see like a 23-22 type a win for Buffalo. Winning it at the end with a field goal, something like that.
Well, to go back to your question about Sauce Gardner, I just found out that he's listed as doubtful because of the hamstring.
Okay. That's
so
good.
There's a possibility
they need him badly in this game.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Yeah.
But I like the Bills in this game away.
Yeah. Okay. The Chicago Bears at the San Francisco 49ers, an intriguing game. I mean, how do you pick the Bears to win? But I'm going to pick them to win this game. I mean, the 49ers, Christian McCaffrey's out. Trent Williams, I think, is out as well. And it's one of these years with the 49ers. The talent's there. They could come back next year and have a good year. But sometimes with players, it's just not their year. I mean, I feel that doing our weekly picks. It's just not my year. You know, I feel like I'm the San Francisco 49. I'm off this year. I'm under 500 in my picks. Unlike last year, I just don't feel like sharp doing it. And I think that's the case with the Niners. It's a long year, and even though I'm sure they haven't given up going to the playoffs. They're realists. They're in last place in their division. Only 2 games out of first. They could still make a run. But sometimes players start thinking about the offseason. They're thinking in terms, I got 5 more games to go and then my season is over. Playoff teams don't say we have 5 more games and my season's over. They think they got 5 more games and then we begin the playoffs.
Injuries have been an Achilles heel, no pun intended, for the 49ers. I mean, I understand, but in no way am I saying the Saints are comparable to the 49ers. They're not. But I do get it. We started out 2-0, and then injuries seem to start unraveling our season. And that's just what happened to the vaunted 49ers, that their injuries have just wrecked their season, and it seems to continue to do so. And you're right. The Bears, look. The Bears have it's the first time for everything. Thomas Brown was an interim OC this season, and then 2 games later he becomes the interim head coach. That's the first time ever in the NFL history that's ever happened. So he went to be an OC. Now he's head coach. But during that time, the Bears have had opportunities to win games, specifically against heated division rivals in the Lions, the Vikings, and the Packers.
Yeah,
but they couldn't win those games, you know. And obviously that last one against the Lions was just a total debacle. Ultimately, what got the head coach fired. But they have an opportunity to pounce on the 49ers at home. In San Francisco. They have an opportunity here. I think Caleb Williams, that offense, they play lights out and they win a close game. They upset the 49ers here. I picked the Bears too.
You know, you made me think of the Jets with your comparison with the Bears, because the Jets and Bears have lost games in similar ways this year. Their record could easily be flip-flopped the other way. If you had Aaron Rodgers, if he was the Bear quarterback and Caleb Williams was a Jet quarterback and the results were the same, you'd say, well, Caleb Williams is a young quarterback, he's developing, and if Aaron Rodgers was quarterback of the Bears, you'd be more critical of him. You know, it's where the players are in their sense of the career, in their time of their career. I like Caleb Williams a lot. He's a gamer. He's got heart. He doesn't get discouraged. He'll keep coming back at you. And I like it because he's trying. You can tell this is a guy who's always trying to figure things out. And he's trying to take a leadership role, you know, as a rookie with what he's doing on the field. And so I think it's a good, Bears did well picking him. You know, like Washington did well picking Jaden Daniels. If I were the Bears and I could have a do-over, I'd still stick with Caleb Williams. And if I was the Commanders and I could have Caleb Williams instead of Jaden Daniels, I want Jaden Daniels. So I think everyone is doing well for themselves, you know, with these rookie quarterbacks. Obviously,
5 years from now, 2024 will be considered one of the better quarterback drafts we've seen in a long time.
Yeah. Who do you like, the Bears or the 49ers to win the game?
The Bears. I like the Bears.
I like the Bears too, to upset them. Now, talk about an interesting game. Chargers at Chiefs. Chiefs have won a ton of close games. I mean, the Chargers are actually 2.5 games behind them. Chargers aren't catching the Chiefs, even if they beat them today to win the division. But any hope of winning the division, they obviously have to win today's game, even though I'm sure that I'm pretty sure they know they're not going to win it regardless. But did the Chargers upset Kansas City? Does it catch up to Kansas City, all the close victories, or did they lose the close one today?
I mean, there's a possibility. I mean, the Chargers defense, look, you got a head coach that's exceeded expectations with the Chargers, because I had no idea they would be this good. I thought that it would be maybe a 4-7 season, not a 7-4 season. And he's doing it with limited talent. I mean, you got a good quarterback. I think there's a resurgence for Justin Herbert. But otherwise, who else can you really name on that team besides the rookie Lad McConkey and the running back J.K. Dobbins, that when he stays hurt, when he stays healthy, he's not even healthy right now. So, and they're still finding ways to win. That defense is what won their game against the Falcons. They got 4 interceptions against Kirk Cousins last week. And I could see the same thing happening in Kansas City. I've got Kansas City winning a close game here because they're at home. But I would not be surprised if Jim Harbaugh goes up there and steals a game from them.
I got Kansas City too in a squeaker once again, a 19-17 type game that they would win. A word about Jim Harbaugh. He did it the right way in the draft. I criticized the Jets for not taking Brock Bowers, and the reason why, because Brock Bowers was clearly the best player available to them, clearly at the time. But when Jim Harbaugh went number 5 overall in the draft, Brock Bowers was available, Malik Neighbors was available. Obviously, they didn't need a quarterback, having Justin Herbert. He took Joe Alt, the offensive lineman from Notre Dame, who I thought was outstanding. That was the way to go. Okay, right. That was the way to go. He wasn't picking. Well, he was picking for need, but he was also getting the best guy available, or a guy who was as good in his position as Malik Neighbors was a wide receiver, Brock Bowers was as a tight end. All factors equal in the college draft. If the talent is the same and the players are the same caliber, then you pick according to need.
Well, you got to look at his mantra or his train of thought. Jim has always been a run-first offensive guy. He's going to make sure you're running the ball. I mean, you can go back to Frank Gore. We go back to when he was with the team, Michigan. When the kid that plays for for the Rams. I mean, Blake Corum. These guys all were featured in his offenses, and so now you have J.K. Dobbins. But you can't do that if your line is not in a good standing. And Joe Alt was the best lineman, clearly the best lineman for in that draft class of all the linemen. And so to pick him at number 5, I wasn't mad at it. A lot of people pegged him to pick Brock Bowers, and that Brock Bowers fell in a lot of mock drafts to that team to go with number 5 overall, but it didn't happen. They got Joe Alt.
Yeah, okay. Last game here, Cincinnati at Dallas. And the mindset of people, James, is, well, Dallas is playing at home, as if it matters, like would help them, give them maybe not an edge to win the game, but would give people apprehension. Oh, can Cincinnati win at Dallas? I asked this, can Dallas win in Dallas? Big deal. They beat the Giants on Thanksgiving Day. They beat them by 7 points, and they're celebrating. Dallas has been atrocious at home. That was their first win at home in a long time. So I don't see the advantage there. And the Bengals still have Joe Burrow. And the Bengals defense has been terrible. I got to give Cincinnati an edge. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game because the Bengals defense has been poor enough where I think the Cowboys are going to be able to put up points. But, of course, I think Joe Burrow and their offense, which has been good this year all in all, it's been their defense that has hurt them more. They're going to be able to put up their share points. So, like 31-27, that type game, I think Cincinnati but maybe Dallas covers the point.
Look, I agree. That's one of my picks. I picked the Bengals because they're unstoppable offensively. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, they're just unstoppable in that arena. And so they're going to play and they're going to score probably. A team that's averaging 30 points a game is supposed to be 8-4, not 4-8. So, like you said, the defense is what's really hurting them. I mean, pretty bad historically. And so I still think they're going to win the game, but I think it's going to be high scoring, like you said. But in this regard, they should beat the Cowboys. I'm not sold on Cooper Rush, coming in and lighting it up that much. So they're going to have to run the ball. I like Dowdle, the guy that's taking the helms at running back for them, and then he should get some yards. He probably get a 100-yard game, but they're going to have to keep Joe Burrow off the field because they're not going to stop him.
No, James, always big surprises in the NFL this season. Teams doing better, worse. Imagine you and I were taken out of civilization and we, at the beginning of the NFL season, and we came back and we had a chance to look at the standings, having no idea what happened in the year, knowing what we thought would happen in the preseason. Who would be the biggest disappointment in the NFL? You were away for like these 12 weeks, no idea what was happening. You had to go away right before opening game. Who's the biggest disappointment?
And I hate to put it on you, man. I picked your team to win a division outright. It was the Jets for sure. I really thought they were good. I mean, on paper, it just looks so good. I like Breece Hall. I like the receivers that they got there. I like the defense that they got. And man, and Aaron Rodgers, this is the year he's bouncing back from the Achilles injury, and he should be the Aaron Rodgers of if he's at least 80% of the four-time MVP caliber quarterback, that's still great. Don't turn over the ball. And he reverted. I mean, he's thrown interceptions. Like, he's probably known as one of the most accurate quarterbacks of all time, man. And he's really been pretty not so great this year.
He had a little goodwill last week at the start of the game that would have won the public over when he threw a mean block. It was a sweep, and it wasn't a token quarterback block. He put his body on the line, and the block helped get a first down. It was a legitimate block where he showed how badly he wanted to get it done. And fans admired that, even the critics, they were like nodding their head, you're showing us something. When you put your body on the line for your team like that, he wasn't just...
Absolutely.
Yeah, but of course they lost the game. If they won the game, whatever. But if I agree with you, the Jets are the biggest disappointment. I'd look at the standings at my team 3-9, and my mouth would be hanging open. What the heck? But also a couple of other teams would have gotten my attention. The 49ers at 5-7, I would have gone back. Are you sure? I never thought they would slip that badly. And the Bengals would have been a disappointment.
Absolutely.
Too, looking, And what team would have been the biggest surprise that would have jolted you? Wow, I didn't
the
quite
Broncos.
see this.
To me, the Broncos. I
thought they were going to the playoffs in the beginning of the year.
Did you really?
They were 8-9 last year. They weren't that bad last year. They were 8-9. I thought they could be 10-7 this year and get there. I think the Vikings would have been my big surprise, even though I thought Sam Darnold would have a good year. What are the Vikings? 10-2. That's exceeding expectations. I thought 7-5, maybe 8-4 at best. But
right. That's a great pick. I agree. Because I pegged the Vikings to be at the bottom of their division. Honestly.
Yeah, we have about 1 minute left. What team is going to fall off the wagon? If you see a team that's been really playing well all season, what team is going to start going downstairs?
It might be the Falcons. I mean, I think
they already went down. James is 6-6. They're already slipping. I'm talking about a team that's playing really well.
It could be because of the games that I think they're playing. It could be the Chiefs because of how close they're playing.
Okay. Fair enough. I think it could be the Vikings because Vikings are 10-2. I can't see them being a 14-3 type team or whatever. But listen, it was a good time. We made it to the end. We kind of went the distance, and it was always fun watching football. And now, we see the games. And good luck, between you and Mac. Your teams are playing one another, the Saints and the Giants. And enjoy the game.
Same to you.
Okay.
Good day, everybody.
Okay. See you next week, James.